Good morning, Dr. Conwell.
Good morning, Dr. Harrison. How you doing?
The doctor.
I'll take it.
Well, it's called your doctor of humanity. I don't see anything wrong with that.
And you're good.
Oh, yeah. That's the best one you could get. You never graduate.
All right, good morning. We are live and quorum, Council Clerk.
Yes, we do have a quorum. Janine, are
Hello,
we good to go?
Madam Chairwoman, hello.
Hi, yes,
Good
this is
morning.
Janine. Yes, the meeting is live streamed.
Okay. All right. Well, my clock says 2 o'clock, so or 10 o'clock. I'd like to call the Human Resources Appointment and Equity Committee meeting to order. Council Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Call the roll, Ms. Brown.
Here.
Mr. Gallagher.
Here.
Mr. Miller.
Here.
Mr. Sweeney.
Present.
Ms. Conwell.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Excellent. Was there any public comment?
No, Madam Chair, no one submitted any public comment.
All right, thank you very much. We should have the minutes from the April 20th meeting before us. If there are no questions or comments, I'd like to call for a motion to approve the minutes from the April 20th meeting.
So moved, Conwell.
Second.
Motion,
Miller.
second by Miller. Any questions, comments, or concerns? There being none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The meeting minutes have been approved. Council Clerk, if you read the first item into the record, please.
Resolution number 2021-0105, adopting various changes to the Cuyahoga County non-bargaining classification plan.
Good morning, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Who's speaking to this item?
I'm Albert Bouchahine, the Class and Comp Manager for the Personnel Review Commission.
All right, if you will let us know about this item coming before us today.
Madam Chair, the PRC approved recommending these class plan changes before you at their April 7th, 2021 meeting. All the revisions are part of routine maintenance and all were prepared by the PRC staff who worked extensively with the Department of Human Resources and Department Management to ensure that they're fully informed of what's proposed before you. In accordance with the PRC rules, the proposed changes were posted on the PRC's website prior to your consideration today. Madam Chairwoman, I'm requesting a substitute resolution that does not include Exhibits M, Manager of Multimedia, and Exhibit N, Multimedia Designer, as we're engaged with Department Management about some additional modifications. The clerk has been made aware, and I believe she has prepared a substitute resolution. I thank you for your consideration. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Before I turn it over to the clerk, how many revisions, deletions, or additions are we looking at?
Madam Chair, there are 4 deletions and I believe 24 revisions.
Okay. And as it relates to the revisions, any change in compensation?
Madam Chair, there are some classifications that change pay grades, but we don't anticipate any fiscal impact as the employee incumbent salaries all fall within the new recommended pay grades.
Thank you. And how many incumbents are we talking about here? Do we know?
I don't have that number, but I can certainly email that number of incumbents for each classification to you after this meeting.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to acknowledge that our council president has been a part of our meeting. I'll open it up to my colleagues. Any questions? Going once, going twice? All right.
Madam Chair.
You have the floor.
To Mr. Bouchahine, among the 4 deletions, are there any that are being deleted because their duties were shifted to an unclassified position?
Madam Chair, to Councilman Miller, there are 3 classifications in the county's class plan that are being recommended for deletion. due to the fiduciary responsibilities that they hold, we had several meetings with Department of HR, with the Law Department, Ms. Nemastil, and Medical Examiner, Dr. Gilson and Hugh Shannon. We reviewed the duties of these three positions, and it was determined that due to the fiduciary responsibilities that they have, that they should be in unclassified designation.
And to follow up, could you describe in more detail what the fiduciary responsibilities are that these people perform, and whether the fiduciary responsibilities comprise only a certain or relatively small portion of their duties, or are the fiduciary responsibilities things that they have to perform every day on a regular basis as part of their duties?
Sure. Madam Chair, to Councilman Miller, all of the incumbents in these three positions are board certified in anatomic and forensic pathology, and they conduct postmortem exams to determine cause of death on a daily basis. In addition to that, they're authorized by Dr. Gilson to not only sign the death certificates, they also represent the county, if necessary, in court proceedings. So these duties, Councilman Miller, are performed on a daily basis. They represent the county and have the authority to sign death certificates in the place of the county medical examiner.
And why is performing a cause of death examination and signing a cause of death certificate a fiduciary responsibility?
It's Councilman, it's not so much performing the postmortem exams, it's the actual signing of the death certificate. They are acting on behalf as a representative of the county.
Okay, thanks. I have no further questions.
All right,
Madam
thank you.
Chair,
Yes, Councilwoman Conwell.
to the chair, to Albert. So by changing the classification, will the pathologist still be able to sign the death certificates?
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Conwell, what's happening here is we're taking these classifications out of the non-bargaining classification plan, and they will become unclassified employees. So their work will not change. It's their civil service designation that's
Okay.
changing.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Councilman Sweet.
thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Albert, are the employees aware of it? Are they in concurrence with it? From going from protected to non-protected is sometimes a concern for some employees.
Sure. Madam Chair, Councilman Sweeney, the employees will be made aware. I don't know what conversations Dr. Gilson or Hugh Shannon have had with the pathologists. We don't notify them, or HR doesn't notify them until County Council takes action. But I could assure you that all of them will have appeal rights if they disagree with their civil service designations. So they will be appeal rights available to them.
Madam Chairwoman, may I follow up?
Yes.
Thank you. Albert, I just wouldn't mind knowing what those appeal rights are offline, and if I just have a better handle on when I make a decision to vote on stuff like this in the future. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
All right, thank you very much. Any other questions?
Madam Chair,
Councilwoman Conwell.
I kind of agree with Sweeney that they're not made aware in the middle of the year. Albert, could you share when this will go in effect? Is it immediately after we pass in council?
Madam Chair, to Councilwoman Conwell, once council adopts the resolution, HR will take action and notify the employees of their change in status. That could be a matter of days or weeks. So not soon, not very far after council takes action.
So Madam Chair, I was wondering, could we hold the proposed deletion classifications till we get a clarification, or at least get a clarification before we pass in the committee of the whole, your suggestion?
I'm opposed to, nothing is off the table, but I would respectfully, it sounds like Mr. Bouchain had something he would like to say. So before we make that decision, Mr. Bouchain.
Madam Chair, I was just asking what the clarification is that you're looking for.
Just to make sure that, not a clarification, but I wanted to have a conversation with Dr. Gilson in terms of, and I don't want to assume, but I would assume that Dr. Gilson did have some conversations with these pathologists, but I just want to be able to have a conversation with them in regards to it before it passes. I think the employees should, I mean, this is a big change for the type of position that it is.
Councilman Sweeney.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. To Albert, do you think you'll be able to, I believe the council meeting this would be heard if it comes out will be in 2 weeks or next week. Will you have enough time to get back to us to let me know what the appeal process is? That's just more routine information, but also the communication that you at least communicated with the co-workers that are impacted by that. Is a week enough?
Oh, absolutely. What I can, after the meeting, I could send you the language that they would receive in their notice.
Good.
Of their appeal rights. As far as Councilwoman Conwell, I don't, she wants to reach out to Dr. Gilson. So that's really on her timeline. I don't know when that's going to be.
Well, you'll let them know in between. You can and will let them know if this comes out of the committee today before the final vote in the council meeting that's coming up either, I believe, next week, if it gets scheduled. Would that be accurate?
Meaning the employees themselves?
Yeah.
They typically aren't sent notice by HR until the resolution is adopted, Councilman.
I'd just like to give them a heads up that we're thinking about it or considering it. So
sure, they can
It's
certainly be
about-
notified.
okay, thank you,
We'll
madam. I'm comfortable.
what I could do is make sure that the employees are aware that this recommendation is being made to council and to share with us any concerns they possibly may have.
Absolutely. And it's public record. They can check the calendar and just give me say this is an option for the future. Check out any calendar of the council. Okay, thank you very much.
So Madam
Madam
Chair,
Chair.
Point of order, Mr. Bouchain, as it relates to the deletions, they are recommended, the recommendation comes from who?
The Madam Chair, the recommendation is coming from the PRC, but it's based on discussions with Dr. Gilson, Hugh Shannon, the Law Department, and Human Resources,
So this
who are
is
all in agreement.
by the PRC. Okay, and then I heard Councilwoman Conwell and then Councilman Miller. Councilwoman Conwell.
thank you, Madam Chair. To Albert, I just wanted to be clear on what the last conversation you had with Councilman Sweeney. So you are going to reach out to Dr. Gilson on behalf of the employees to make them aware before we do a vote at the committee as a whole?
Correct, Councilwoman. I can reach out to the employees to ensure that this recommendation is before council and to share with us any concerns that they may have.
Okay. And you think that'll be a couple days?
Oh, certainly.
Okay.
Absolutely.
In the meantime, I'll reach out to Dr. Gilson too. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilman Miller.
Madam Chair, thank you very much. And my question is to Director Drucker, and I know that you and your department are doing a program to specifically review all possible positions where there could be a question as to whether they should be classified or unclassified. This is an ongoing program that we've been working on. And my question is whether these positions have been specifically reviewed through that process and what your determination was.
No, they have not, Councilman. This process was separate and apart from any of the process that Human Resources and Law were looking at, any of the positions that Human Resources and Law were looking at.
Any other questions, Councilman Miller? You're on mute.
Not a
Those were
question, but
Councilman Miller, those were historic. And that list was put together before my appointment. This particular instance is recent with the medical exam. I suppose with the medical examiner's office coming forward and looking for a change in classification. And Mr. Bouchane can talk to that, I believe.
so, Director, have you personally reviewed this situation, and do you feel that this change in classification is consistent with the process that we applied to those other classifications that we reviewed?
So I have not personally reviewed these. These came forward in the ordinary course of business. However, I'd submit to you, Councilman, that the review process was similar to what we had used for the other classifications in terms of reviewing the job duties, looking at the status of each of the jobs, whether or not they fit within the categories that the ORC has put out. And I know that, as Mr. Bouchane said before, this change was reviewed with law. I think it's important to note here, Councilman, that this recommendation is coming from the PRC. These are not classifications that were unilaterally decided that they would be in the unclassified service.
Madam Chair, and to my colleagues and to the Director, I have to confess that I'm having trouble seeing why signing a death certificate makes this a fiduciary responsibility and it should be an unclassified position. I think that county employees sign all kinds of documents on behalf of the county. Are we going to say next that any of the procurement people who authorize a contract of which we sign thousands, that those are fiduciary responsibilities? I just don't know where this would end.
I would humbly, respectfully request that we consider that these have been submitted by the PRC and not the administration as a option to what often feels like changing classified positions to non-classified positions for their own advantages, if you will. Given that is the nature of this request, I am inclined to move this forward again, but I would yield and ask if Mr. Bouchane can speak to Mr. Miller, Councilman Miller's concern, to reassure him the differences as it relates to his question.
Madam Chair, to Councilwoman, just an additional proposal. If until we get satisfactory answers to council's concerns, would council consider moving all the other items forward until we resolve the pathologist situation and answer all your questions? I'll just offer a substitute resolution, not including them.
Councilman Gallagher has a statement or a question. Councilman.
Thank you, Chairwoman. And I might be wrong, but I don't think I am. The person that signs the death certificate is then held liable for any actions down the road if there's a concern with the cause of death. I unfortunately ran through this in my personal life. Getting a doctor to sign a death certificate is very difficult because of that potential action of the survivors. So for the person signing the death certificate with the medical examiner, there is a fiduciary responsibility to the county. I don't know if that helps.
Is there anyone from the law department that can speak to this issue?
Good morning, Madam Chair. I'm not certain as to whether or not the pathologist who signs a death certificate would be liable, but I can say that in conversations that I've had with Dr. Gilson, Hugh Shannon, who is the Director of Operations, and those in the Department of Human Resources, I think the analysis is a little bit deeper than just signing the death certificate. So, these pathologists are deputized, and that's consistent with the Ohio Revised Code, Section 1313. They're responsible for performing autopsies and are required to have achieved the board certification in anatomic and forensic pathology. They primarily work independently and use their discretion in performing autopsies and determining the cause of death. And why Dr. Gilson does have some Q&A protocol, he very much relies on these pathologists based on their own unique skill sets, education, training, and experience to properly perform these duties. Another important point is that the forensic pathologies 2 and 3s are required to rotate, serving as the on-call pathologist for the medical examiner office. And that requires Dr. Gilson to also have confidence in not only their actual pathology duties, but also their judgment and leadership abilities. For example, if there's a homicide, the on-call pathologist will report to the scene and is independently responsible for directing the investigation, which is critical to maintaining the integrity of the death scene and overall determination of the cause of death and to evaluate the disease or injury. They are also responsible for signing off on the death certificates, and Dr. Gilson does not co-sign them. So that's just one factor. Also, with respect to the forensic pathologist 3, this group also has additional responsibilities for, they are required to do one of the following: directing and running the education program for medical students, directing and running the fellowship program, and supervising pathology assistants. And they have discretion in performing all of these duties. I don't know if that helps provide you some more information.
Thank you very much. Is that Councilman Sweeney?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for that much deeper explanation. And that gives me a better understanding why you want to move from classified to unclassified. And with that explanation, Madam Chairwoman, I support your position on moving it forward. So you don't have to worry about me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Sweeney. Are there any other questions? Does that help clarify matters for the remainder of the committee? Councilwoman Conwell?
No, I'm still at this time. I'm willing to pass it if we, if I can have a conversation and we get what Albert has stated, that he would reach out to the employees to move it forward in the committee of the whole, or we can do a substitute. I'm feeling okay with the substitute of the proposed deletions. I mean, these are people's jobs. I think we should really consider doing moving everything else forward and holding this maybe to next time.
This it does not appear that this would need to be done today. So I will respectfully honor that so that we can move this out of the legislation. I guess we would need to, in addition to the substitution, to remove items M and N. We would also need to consider removing, if you would be so kind, Mr. Bouchain, to identify those items that we would need to.
Sure. I'm looking at the resolution. We would be holding Exhibit T, Director of Parentage, Quality Assurance Manager and Training, Exhibit U, Forensic Pathologist 2, and Exhibit V, Forensic Pathologist 3. It would be five exhibits in total.
All right. Okay, so I'll make the motion to substitute the items, to remove items M, N, T, U, and V. Do I have a second?
Second, Sweeney.
All right, it's been moved in second. Is there any further discussion? There being none, all in favor of the substitute, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, all in favor of moving the item as substituted, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. We will hear the remainders. Mr. Boucher, if you will get back to us so that we can get the other items back on the agenda, that would be greatly appreciated. And Council Clerk, will you read the next item into the record?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Councilman Millen.
just a question. On the resolution as substituted, are we referring it just for second reading, or are we recommending passage under suspension?
Second reading.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any additional questions? All right. Council Clerk, will you read the second item into the record, please?
Before I do that, I'd like to recognize that Councilman Tuma has also joined the meeting.
Oh, thank you.
Resolution number 2021-0112, confirming the county executive's reappointment of John M. Hairston Jr. to serve on the Metro Health System Board of Trustees for the term March 1st, 2021 to February 28th, 2027.
Thank you for joining us, Mr. Hairston. I'm going to turn it over. Before I turn it over to you, I'm going to ask Director Pomerantz if she would give us a little background about this reappointment, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The county executive is proud to present the reappointment of John M. Hairston to serve on the Metro Health System Board of Trustees for the term 3/1/2021 to 2/28/2027. Ohio Revised Code provides for the organization of a county hospital and also for the creation of county hospital trustees and the means by which appointments are made. We would like to recommend John M. Hairston, and also we have the letters of support from the two judges, Judge Anthony Russo, as well as Judge Gall, Daniel Gall, who also support this appointment. With us also is our Senior Vice President of Metro Health Communications, Community Engagement, and Government Relations, Joe Froelich. And also, we're happy to report that Mr. Hairston is here to join us to answer any questions you or the committee members may have.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions for the director? If there are none, Mr. Hairston, you have the floor. You'd like to give us a brief background and tell us why you'd like to continue to serve in this position. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you, and the whole council the committee for allowing me to come before you today. I talked to Joe Froelich, and he's given me all the instructions that I need to say, and I'm hard to deal with, as you probably. Joe, you had something you want to say?
I just wanted to sing your praises for a moment, if I could, Madam Chairman, because a lot of you know Mr. Hairston. He could be called one of these people who needs no introduction, but he deserves he has really one of the most incredible personal stories of anybody who's going to come before your committee. And if not your members, then just for the edification of anybody else in the public who might be watching. You know, John grew up in segregated West Virginia. He went to an all-black 2-room schoolhouse. Went on to Blue State University, which is, I told him I have to say that because it's I think it's one of the prettiest college names I know of. He graduated with a degree in English, and he wanted to be a teacher. So he came to Cleveland in 1964, taught at Kennard Junior High School, which was then in the Outhwaite House homes. And he told my communications team when he came to visit with us earlier this year that it was the best job he ever had. He spent 27 years with the school system, moved up from the classroom into doing some administrative stuff. And then when a lot of people might have retired, he moved on to a whole second career as Director of External Affairs at the NASA Glenn Research Center here in Cleveland. And he spent his 2 decades there building bridges between probably Northeast Ohio's greatest repository of technology knowledge to the business community and to schools and to the general public. He also worked as a district director for Marcia Fudge. He went back to the schools at one point to be communications chief for Gene Sanders when he was CEO. He's been on the school board, the Board of Elections. He's a trustee of another of our essential institutions, the Cleveland Public Library. And since 2019, he's been a trustee here at Metro Health. And I just find him to be one of the people who's really a conscience for us who work here a constant reminder of the need to be more thoughtful and inclusive and engaging with the community if we're going to live up to Metro Health's mission. So it's just a pleasure to be here with them. And I just like the chance to talk for a couple minutes and brag on it. I'll turn it back over to you, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
And if you would like to share with us a little more why you'd like to continue in this position.
Sure, I know time is of the essence, so I'll be very, very brief. When I came before you 3 years ago, you asked the question, why do I want to be on the board? And I had a personal story as to why I wanted to be. But I didn't tell you the part of when I worked for the Cleveland schools. Metro was the only one that would take our kids without having the insurance cards. And so we was like I'm down south, so pardon my parables, like throwing a rabbit in a briar patch when you put me over at Metro. I was just as comfortable as I could be. Immediately, they gave me the job, of which I've been working very closely with Joe, in reviving the Community Engagement Committee. I have this bad thing about me. They say, well, who do I report to? And they start telling me, I said, well, I won't do it. If I report to me, that'll be okay. And I'm proud to say that right now, we have a very active Community Engagement Committee. We're looking at health disparities in all of our communities. We were able to initiate with our CEO a better system for vaccines and COVID testing all over the footprint of Metro. We are looking at what's called Project Hope. I guess you know what hope means in the first place, but the fact of the matter is, my whole life I've had an opportunity. How I got there, I do not know, but it's standing on the backs of people to be engaged in the community. So I thought the committee that was given to me by Vanessa Whiting, the president, was one that kind of fit me a little bit. I know I drive the staff crazy, but that's just part of the game, but it's a good crazy. I'm just focused on making sure that all people within the Metro footprint have equal access and opportunity. I'm especially working with right now Alan Never with diversity, inclusion, and equity. And I think I've redefined what it means to Metro. Not some of the things you see in the history books, but what it really means to people, even down to working with him around supply chains, how we get more people involved, and a lot of the contracts that are going in and out. They're doing a wonderful job. I'm just co-chair for that piece. I'm looking forward to it if you'll allow me to spend the next couple of years and reappoint me to really working with staff. And I just have to say, Joe is one of them. We're going to revise the charter, make the charter more inclusive of everybody. We're going to revise the charter and make sure we have a communication two-way system where people can get access to information that they may not be able to get access with some of the venues that are out there. And so if I'm appointed, give me about, Joe has never heard this, but give me about 4 months and we'll have a new charter. So probably seeking other resources. I'm a firm believer that the program should drive the budget, not the budget drive the program. And sometimes people don't understand that, but I'm having a good time. I guess you could tell that, Congresswoman.
Thank you for that. So we have you, just for the record, to February 2027. So you'll be doing this work for a little more than a couple of years, Mr. Harrison. So we want to make sure that that you are clear on that. We are excited about your aggressive goals to get a new charter in the next 4 months, and we certainly are eager to see more of the great work that you are going to do. I would say Mr. Frolick described you very well as a person who needs no introduction. Your reputation precedes you, and we are just blessed that you want to continue to serve in this capacity. So unless there are any other questions or comments, yes, Mr. Sweeney, and then Councilman Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and to Mr. John Harrison. As I said, it was nice seeing you on the Zoom and seeing you again. It's music to my ears what you're saying. It's about the community engagement. I have the privilege of being the local council person in District 3, which is front and center in Metro, is right in the middle there. And I look forward to being part of that with you, as well as with Councilwoman Santana. And when this COVID in-person stuff gets going up again, I'd like to be able to come in and come visit the board and just
Sure.
begin and more fully all the different tools that are there so I can play my role to try to help meet the vision of the great CEO of Metro Health. So with that said, where's my brain going? John, does the charter need council and administrative approval, or is that a charter that is solely inside the bandwidth of Metro Hospital?
It's inside the bandwidth and it goes before the full trustee board to be adopted.
So can you tell me how that works? I mean, under your committee as the chairperson?
Under my committee as chairperson. And what I like about the committee is that it has such breadth. We have people from the library now. We have people from the county. Now we have people that I kind of reached out to from other hospitals even to make sure, and not only that, with a lot of community centers. I think most of you may know a woman named Gail Long.
Yeah.
Gail is on the committee and Aaron is on the committee. And we have, at our last meeting, we had, I think, about 15 people out of the 17 that we had. So they're very, very active. They are starving for more information. My focus has been not to create a need for additional resources, but people need to know the resources that we got there so we can expand the knowledge and the accessibility for the resources that we got. So far, it's working exceptionally well. We've done a couple of videos with Joe's lead on ministers and clergy getting shots and putting it out all over the place and letting people know. And a number of our institutions have borrowed those kinds of things, not borrowed, we sent them to them. And they've been using them with their own constituency. That's what I believe in. You got to have information that ought to make education decisions. I guess you heard the word education because you know where I'm from. But you got to have the information. And it's a remarkable sign of kind of good things that come out of dialogue when we have our meetings. So but the charter, to answer your question, is one that goes before the full board and the CEO. And I'm quite sure we won't have any problem moving it. And then we will have input from the committee, and we'll make it public when we finish with it.
And Madam Chairwoman, can I have a follow-up?
Sure.
Thank you. John, this committee is organized and has been operating. Is that correct? And how long has been?
I think the committee took a hiatus for a while until I got there, and immediately they wanted to stand it up again. And so we put together a team to stand it up. And for the last 2.5 years, we've been very successful in standing it up. Getting credibility for it and making it a necessary entity as far as Metro is concerned.
No, it's up and operating for 2.5 years now. And it's the committee that you chair that's taking the responsibility of the very specific task of updating and making recommendations to the board to change the charter in whatever capacity that committee recommends.
That is correct.
Could I get a list of the people that are on that committee so I can have an understanding of the work that you've been doing? And I just like to see that so I can maybe add a thought or two.
And I'll tell you what, we'll also reach out to you for a presentation if you would like, because we have presentations that we share with everybody. And if you find some time in your busy schedule, not only will we send you the information you requested, but we can sit down and do a tutorial for you.
Absolutely. I need a tutorial. And I'm never too busy because you pay my salary, sir. So I'm focused.
Well, since this position is a volunteer position, I will give you half of my salary.
Thank you very much. I relinquish the floor, Madam Chairwoman. I look forward to working with you, John and Joe.
Thank you.
Councilman Miller, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. And to Mr. Hairston, I would just like to say hello and to recognize your long and distinguished record of public service and thank you for all of that, and say that I support your renomination and I would like to have my name added as a sponsor of the resolution. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
It's
you.
always been a pleasure to work with you, Council, always.
Thank you, Council.
Add me, Madam Chairwoman. Sorry about that. They'll beat me to it.
And Councilwoman Conwell.
Now, I'd like to have my name added as well, but Madam Chair, if I could ask Michelle, how many more openings or seats available on the Metro Board currently?
The ORC promotes us to, provides 10 seats, and currently there are 9 seats on the Metro Health Board.
Okay, so they're all filled.
With John's reappointment today, if that's confirmed, there will be 1 remaining.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you very
Madam
much.
Chair.
Yes, Council President Jones.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, one, I just want to say congratulations, Mr. Hairston, and thank you for your continued and committed service to this community. You're my friend, and I have just enjoyed the conversations that I've had with you in time that we have been in each other's presence. You know, there's an old saying that says you don't always remember what someone says or what they do, but you remember how they make you feel. And I come away encouraged by you, motivated. You broaden my horizons, and I consider you a mentor and a leader. We've had conversations around education that still encourage me to this day. So I thank you. I think it's high praise. I think it was Mr. Froelich who mentioned, pointed out that you are a conscience. You have come out of the Kennard Outhwaite community right here, my district, blocks from where I live. And again, you are a mentor of your generation, a mentor to me and my generation. And I just thank you for your continued service and look forward to working with you in the future. And most definitely add my name to all my other colleagues.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Council President Jones. And I've also been notified that Councilman Gallagher would like his name added. So let's make it unanimous, include my name as well. And so if there are no additional questions, comments, concerns, or songs of praise for our true treasure here.
Madam Chair, would you mind considering a second reading suspension?
I got you covered. Absolutely. All right. So if there's nothing else, then I'll make the motion to move this to the full body of the council under second reading suspension. Who will be first to second?
Second.
Thank you.
The mute got me.
Pick one of them.
So him being our newest member, like to get him more credit so he can keep his name on the record. So we're gonna give that second to Councilman Sweeney. No further questions or concerns. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed. And thank you again, Mr. Harrison, for joining us today. You've been in true John Harrison fashion. You have blessed us with your presence. If you would like to continue to stick around for the rest of the meeting, you are welcome to do so. But we know how busy, incredibly busy you are. So if you have to leave, we understand that as well. So with that, I'm going to ask the council clerk to read the next item into the record, please.
Ordinance
Thank you
number
for your time.
Thank you, Chair.
Ordinance number 2021-0005, providing for modifications to and adoption of the Cuyahoga County Human Resources Personnel Policies and Procedures Manual to recognize Juneteenth as a paid county holiday to be applicable to all county employees.
All right, thank you very much for reading that item into the record. We're gonna pick the conversation back up from our last Human Resources and Equity Committee meeting. Is there anyone here to speak to this item today?
Madam Chair, I believe HR Director Jesse Drucker is going to speak to this item, I believe.
I think I gave the council an introduction when this measure was first introduced. I think the last session, if I remember correctly, the last council session, there was a discussion as to whether or not the Juneteenth date would be an appropriate day for the holiday, or whether moving the holiday and providing Election Day as the holiday would be appropriate. I think that's where, if memory serves me correctly, I think that's where the subcommittee left it at that point in time.
I think you are absolutely right. So with that, we've had this conversation. So I would like to suggest holding off on the discussion related to June. I'd like to get some more feedback from the administration on their discussions with the unions, as well as their suggestions on the best path forward related to potentially moving the day off to Election Day. And I hope that my committee members will support me in that. So with that, we'll hold this item and wait to hear back from the administration and move to item D. Council Clerk.
Ordinance number 2021-0007, enacting section 202.21 of the county code, establishing a Department of Equity and Inclusion to enhance equity both within county government and throughout the community of Cuyahoga County, amending chapter 509 of the county code to specify certain duties of the department.
All right, who is here to speak to this item? It looks like Director Chambers has joined us. So if you will state your name for the record and
It's Mike Chambers, and I'm the fiscal officer, and I do have a couple slides I'd like to share. So give me 1 second.
you're able to see your screen.
Yeah. Let's try this. Okay, the first slide I have here, can everyone see this the org chart?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so this is the high level county org chart, and what we're talking about today is right here under the fiscal office. You see the treasury, the budget management. This here, these two highlighted areas is the Office of Procurement and Diversity, which what we're proposing now is to break them in two and to form Department of Purchasing and the Department of Equity Inclusion. So very high level, you can see how it flows up with all the other department leads. And I believe this was shared with the council last time from HR. So I just wanted to start with that real quick. And then I just want to jump into just a short presentation on this. So I'm starting with the executive orders. I'm not going to go through them, but what we feel strongly is this is empowering and increasing the diversity and inclusion opportunities. As we talked before the last meeting, there's a lot of goals being set. There's forecasts, outreach, and expanding some existing programs. And all of this is work that will be done by the breakout Department of Equity and Inclusion. I do want to draw attention, no doubt, to the Disparity Study. Many people are familiar with this. I highlighted recommendation number 3 because for me, especially, increasing staffing is one thing, but also giving it the opportunity, the department the opportunity to succeed is what I believe is a great part of this as well. And I believe this is also telling me that this should create its own identity versus, being combined with procurement and diversity. I think that, this should be its own, Department of Equity. So I'm not going to go into each one of these things. We've kind of beat them up before, but ultimately, here's what I'm here to talk about is the reason and, Department of Equity and Inclusion, and the reason for it for me specifically is that I think that we've handcuffed the current director while it's under procurement and diversity. As everyone's well aware, for the last several years, we've been rolling out a new ERP program, and the focus has always been on procurement. I'm not here to undermine or say that we haven't been doing our inclusion efforts, but the director's primary responsibility has been shifted mainly towards procurement. And believe me, she's done a great job trying to balance them. But I believe we need a single centralized focus on, diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is probably the number one reason for the department. In addition to that, as we talked about, right now everyone believes, procurement is basically procurement and contracting, and we lose the equity and inclusion portion of that. And I believe, but with the new department, with its own identity, will reignite, reinvigorate, and also along with those executive orders, empower this department to, really fulfill the mission, really dive into disparity study recommendations and make some positive changes. And, once again, the tools and authority were laid out in the executive orders, and I believe that's a very big part of this. And I kind of go back to the single, centralized focus. Once again, it is a big department with a great, many missions. And I think what we need to do is break procurement off, break equity inclusion off. And that's what we're asking for. That's what this ordinance is all about. Giving this department the best success to, meet these disparity and inclusion goals, and let purchasing continue down. There's still about another year to go before we come out and we're 100% up and running with our new system. We've come a long way, but I'd like the focus for, this department to be on equity inclusion, and we'll keep the focus moving on solving the procurement area. So that is kind of a short presentation. I know we've talked about this, several times in the past, and I'll be happy to answer any more questions that the council may have. But the goal here is to create this Department of Equity and Inclusion.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chambers. I think that certainly has helped me to understand and certainly clarify some of the questions that I've had. With that, I will open it up to my council colleagues to see if there are any questions. And because we're in screen sharing mode, I can't see you all. So,
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
All right, so we'll start with Councilman Gallagher and then Councilman Miller. I heard Gallagher first.
Thank you. Mr. Chambers, I'm always leery about expanding government and broad brush suggestions to add more employees. As we have found out, we probably need less employees through this pandemic. But the thing that concerns me is are we saying by doing this that the people on board have been unsuccessful in their mission to expand diversity and equity?
No, sir, not at all. What I'm saying is the leader of this department and everything that's been going on for the last, couple years and where we're at now is that we've handcuffed the leadership of this department. And because right now, if you think of Office of Procurement and Diversity, everyone just keeps hearing the procurement part of it. And everything that's been going on, her attention has been drawn, unfortunately, and necessarily, to the procurement side of things. And we've tried this for the last several years. And, now that we've had these executive orders and the new disparity study recommendations, now's the opportunity to free and make sure that this is the sole focus of the director, department lead on this thing, and just moving and breaking those pieces apart so that focus can be 100% and not 20% or 15% or whatever it is right now.
Well, we have a disparity study. I'm still waiting on some answers to questions that I had. So that's not fully accepted as far as I'm concerned right now. But going under the assumption that all of what they recommend and suggest is true, I would recommend to you not using the ERP as an excuse, because kind of you are. It is what it is, and I don't want to talk about it. And everybody knows my position on that. And but that was my concern is expanding the government to cover an area that we were supposed to be covering, and suggesting in the disparity study that we weren't doing a good job. This is almost, to me, typical government maneuvering, is take people that are unsuccessful in the position they're at, create new positions, give them a title and a hefty bonus, and move them on. We've seen that in this county. And if you don't know who I'm talking about, I'll tell you off air. I think we're well aware of all those people that get promoted that have no business being promoted. But it is, again, what it is. I'm not the administration and probably never will be. I'm just trying to be very careful with how we expand our role within the four corners of the charter. Thank you.
To the council president, or
Madam Chair.
Mr. Chambers, you would like to respond?
Yeah, just briefly. I mean, if I brought out the ERP, I wasn't blaming the ERP. I was trying to understand procurement. We're probably one of the top 30, 35 counties in the country. We have a lot of procurement that goes on here. being a government, we have a lot of controls over that. So my goal here is that combined with going into our new system, the leadership of this department is focused mainly on procurement. And not to say we've undermined, the disparity study did call for increased staffing, and we have identified funding for that. But my sole focus here is to move and separate the procurement from the the inclusion and equity, so that there's a success.
I appreciate that. And I was one of the originals, and when we first came in and Mr. Mowry was the IT director, he took us through how ridiculous it was what the county was doing on the procurement level. And quite honestly, we've moved that needle very little, and that's been a very disappointing thing. And I don't want to indicate that that's an individual or individuals, but I group myself as being part of the problem in not being able to make this a more aggressive and professional situation for those that do business with Cuyahoga County. And if it were to do that and accomplish that from what we started over 10 years ago, then yeah, I'm on board.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilman Gallagher. Councilman Miller.
Madam Chair, thank you very much. And I would just first like to ask Director Chambers if you could send us all both the broad overview organization chart and the slides that you presented today. It was very brief, but I think it created an excellent big picture showing of some of these issues. And I would just like to say that in government, from time to time, there's a change in focus from what's secondary to what's primary or gets additional emphasis. And certainly in Cuyahoga County, with the passage of the resolution last summer and the general directions that we've taken, that we've made a choice to make equity and inclusion a primary focus going forward. And I do think there's the potential that having a separate department for inclusion and equity and a separate department for procurement might enable us to make greater progress in both areas. So I do support the legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Miller. This might be a question for Director Drucker, or you may be able to answer it, but as it relates to our employees, when we do split the departments, is there an impact as it relates to employees bumping rights?
No, ma'am, it does not. The positions that are being created are new positions. So they would be posted. They would be posted and subject to whatever recruitment process is applicable to their job classification.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Sweeney. Oh, yes, Mr. Chambers, and I think Councilman Sweeney may have a question or comment. First, Mr. Chambers.
Just to follow up on Director Drucker there, the new the increased staffing was called for in the disparity study. Those are going to be, as he indicated, additional positions. The remaining positions are already existing. We're just separating it. And once again, I didn't bring up the previous slides that we went over before, but we're just moving the existing staff over that are already doing some of the inclusion components of that department. And that's why we're going to take some from, we're breaking the two departments apart. Hopefully that clarified it.
Thank you very much. Councilman Sweeney.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and to the director. I just see it as the diversity study was completed. This is the efforts by the administration to help improve and continue the improving of the diversity and inclusion. And I'm fully supportive of it, and we'll just see how it goes. And I know they'll keep us in the loop, and any things that we want to add to it, I'm pretty sure that they'll be open to it. And we all have the ultimate goal of improving and keeping the inclusion and diversity at the highest level possible. And we want to be the model throughout the country as a county. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, under your leadership.
Thank you, Councilman Sweeney. Councilwoman Conwell.
Through the chair to Mr. Drucker or Mr. Chambers. Are these classified positions, these new ones?
Yes, they are.
Both of them. Okay, thank you.
All right. Are there any additional questions or comments? All
Madam
right.
Chair.
Yes, Council President Jones.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, just would like to add that with the creation of this new department, remember we had a Luis Cartagena, who was an individual who left. But now as we add additional people, there's a net effect in my mind, because we did lose that gentleman that was not replaced. And now we pick up, actually, I'm going to say an entire department. And I do support this. The efforts of this department are going to be focused across the entire county, not just procurement and diversity. But I also keep in mind that although when Lenore was director of the entire department, there were moments she could green light and red light the things that she did. Now I want to make sure that we don't, as they say, just don't put baby in the corner, so to speak, that the things that she recommends, as she looks to implement the recommendations, that they are heard, that they are recognized. It's important to have a good faith effort to implement the 8 recommendations that we have now and the 12 previous recommendations from the last study. So ultimately there are 20 that are rolling over with each other, overlapping each other. So we have to put a good faith effort over the next 4 years, so that when the next study is done, there is a moving of the needle, or there's not a failure to move the needle because we didn't do the best work that we could. So this really requires over 4 years that we watch diligently as a council and administration, that we do, again, put the best faith effort to make sure we're implementing, maintaining the data, so that when the next study comes, if there's any issues, it wasn't from a lack of effort on our parts to implement the recommendations that came forward. So I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Council President Jones. So the way I view this is I thank the administration for putting forth the effort to address the issues that stemmed from the legislation, also from the declaring racism as a public health crisis, which Councilman outside of the disparity study, these were also recommendations introduced to us by the Citizens Advisory Council on Equity. And as Council President Jones highlighted, the importance of this department is not solely as it relates to contracts, but even internal policies that have prevented even some of our very own employees, in my opinion, from getting the from getting adequate compensation for positions that they have been put into. And so this indeed, to me, is a step in the right direction. So I wholeheartedly support it. And with that, I would like to make the recommendation to move this to the full body of the council under second reading suspension. Do I have a second?
Second, Conwell.
Been moved and seconded. If there's no additional questions, comments, or concerns, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, this will move to the full body of the council under second reading suspension. If you'll read the.
Can you add my name?
Absolutely, my name as well. Council, please add Councilman Sweeney and Brown.
And Conwell.
Conwell.
And Jones.
And Jones.
Put Jones first.
Thank you. Council Clerk, after you've added those names, if you will read the next item into the record, please.
Ordinance number 2021-0008. An ordinance amending chapters 507 and various sections of the county code to reflect the dissolution of the Office of Procurement and Diversity and its replacement by the Department of Purchasing and the Department of Equity and Inclusion.
And who will speak to this item?
It'll be me again.
Welcome back.
Councilwoman.
You have the floor.
So we did have a conversation with this in the Public Works Committee a couple of weeks ago, and we went back and forth. And this legislation was always contingent on approval of the previous item we just had. So once again, this will now establish the Department of Purchasing, and everything else is just moving the code sections around so that we can get this done and separate the equity and the purchasing components.
All right.
Excuse me, Madam Chairman, sorry, Mike, this particular this is Greg Huth, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, who's speaking?
This is Greg Huth.
Okay, thank you. You have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, this ordinance only realigns the different terms within our code of ordinances. This doesn't do anything to implement the purchasing department. As you know, we had been working under this construct of a Department of Procurement and Diversity, but now that we're separating them out, there were several references throughout our code to the Department of Procurement and Diversity. Well, that doesn't exist anymore. So in consultation with the administration, we went through the code and identified those places where it should refer to the Department of Purchasing and those places where it should refer to the Department of Equity and Inclusion. And that's what this ordinance does only, is change those terms within the code.
All right, thank you for that point of clarification. Are there any questions from my colleagues regarding?
If I can add one other point, I'm sorry, I do think this one needs to be held until the Department of Purchasing is created.
Thank you.
So that I don't think we can move this one along until that other department, to that other ordinance is moved along as well.
On that point, Madam Chairwoman,
Ms. Sweeney.
just in sequence, is if that one's passed on the council and then this one's passed on the council and it's signed by the executive and then signed by us, all that works in sequence, would that be acceptable? Or does it have to be a separate council meeting? Because you said it's just that when it goes in and when it's enacted.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Madam Chairman of the council, and the way you describe it is as in sequence is works, yes. They don't have to be at the same meeting. They just have to be passed in sequence.
Okay, so we can send it out of committee and hold it off of the council agenda until the legislation gets sent out of Public Works?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, all right, then that's what we'll do. So we're gonna, I'll make the motion to move this under second reading, no suspension. Do I have a second?
Second. Miller, fine.
All right, I'll take that from Miller. So it's been moved and seconded. If there's no questions, comments, or concerns, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, this will move out of committee into the full body of the council. Council Clerk, if you read the next item into the record, please.
Ordinance number 2021-0009, amending section 303.03 of the Cuyahoga County Code to update the rules for the maintenance of the eligibility list for potential employees.
All right, and who's speaking to this item?
I will be today, Chairwoman Brown.
Hi there. Okay, if you'll state your name for the record and tell us a little bit about this ordinance coming before us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Rebecca Kupczynski for the Personnel Review Commission. I'd like to take just a few minutes to give you some background and some explanation about the change that we're requesting. In a broad sense, this is an issue that has arisen from the COVID situation, but I think we're proposing a change that's going to broaden our flexibility a little bit to be responsive, more responsive to individuals that have issues regarding their availability for testing. Currently, the way that the PRC rules operate, when we administer a civil service test, we do provide an opportunity for persons who have emergencies or scheduled non-emergency conflicts to request a rescheduled opportunity to take the test if they're not able to attend when it's originally scheduled. When this happens, we do those reschedulings very quickly after the initial test so that we can merge the names from the original test administration with those names of people who came in for rescheduled thing and create a single eligibility list for the administration. We don't like to hold up the hiring process, so we require those reschedulings to happen relatively quickly. When COVID started happening and we recognized that there might be scenarios where persons were affected by quarantine restrictions resulting from the pandemic, we recognized that our current rules weren't flexible to allow us to deal with those scenarios because we weren't willing to delay the implementation of an eligibility list for a number of weeks. So basically what we're asking for in this proposed change is flexibility in the rules to allow us, people who are affected by the COVID, and I think council staff added the language to even broaden it beyond that to other extraneous circumstances, that persons who were unable to test within that testing period, initial testing period, would be able to come in at a later date, take the test, and if they're successful on the test, we'd be able to merge their names onto the original eligibility list. And that's essentially the changes that we're requesting today. And I'm happy to answer any questions that people have.
Great, thank you very much. All right, another example of COVID making us reevaluate and improve our efficiency. So I'm pleased about that. So are there any questions, comments, or concerns from the committee? All right, if there are none, I think you explained the legislation thoroughly. That would mean, do you need this on second reading, or I think we should probably go through the full 3 readings?
That's fine.
Okay. All right, then if there are no questions, comments, or concerns, I'll make the motion to move this to the full body of the council. Is there a second?
Second, Sweeney.
All right, it's been seconded by Sweeney. If there are no additional questions, comments, or concerns, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, move to the full body of the council. Thank you very much. It's good to see you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, so if there's no miscellaneous business, which I actually do have miscellaneous business. Several communities have a special election today. This is an election day, people. So if you haven't voted already, please remember to stop by your local polling location and cast your ballot. There are issues and maybe candidates and bonds on the ballot. I know my next stop is the polling location to vote on a bond issue here in the city of Warrensville. So if there's no other miscellaneous business, then this meeting is adjourned. All right.
Good.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
See you later. See you, colleagues.